We begin the Gemara today on Daf Pei with the base, 6 lines up from the bottom of the Yomud. Said in the Mishnah, "V'kulon sha'amru," all different craftsmen that are doing a job, and after they're done with the job, they said, "Toila shulcha, come and take your item. It's done. V'hava mois, and then you'll pay me at a later point." In other words, he's not holding up the item until he pays. So the job is done and it's available for pickup. Shei mechinam, as long as it still stays in his possession, he's going to be a shei mechinam. Even though before, the Tana of this Mishnah says that a craftsman has the halach of a shei mesachar, like a paid shei, is obligated to, he's responsible for gneva v'aveda, but not after the job is done. Okay, so here the Gemara is going to bring a Mishnah from later in the Masechta, and there's going to be over here a question on this halacha that we learned here in the Mishnah. Tanan Hasam, the Mishnah later says, in a case where a person is borrowing something, Amali Shoyol, now the Shoyol sends a message to the person he's borrowing from, Shlach, send me this item that I want to borrow from you. And the owner sells it, the owner sells it with any shliach, with a slave or whatever it is. B'sholcha, sends it to him, Umeisa, the animal that he sent died, Einus happened on the way and it died, Chayiv. It's going to be the responsibility of the Shoyol to pay for this.
He didn't receive it.
Right, even though he didn't receive it yet, but because he's the one that requested it was his initiative, he asked the owner to send it to him. The moment he sends it and it leaves the possession of the owner, it's already the responsibility of the shoyal that requested it. The same halacha will apply also when it comes to returning it. If you're returning the item, so if the shoyal is returning it on his initiative to the owner, so then until it reaches to the hands of the owner, it's still in the shoyal's possession, and he's obligated for any aynus that happens to it, as the halach is with every shoyal. But if it's the owner that requested, send it back to me, and you sent it back on his request, so then whatever happens with it along the way will not be your responsibility anymore, because the owner requested for it. Rav from Bar Papa Rav Chiste. Rav from Bar Papa says in the name of Rav Chiste that lo yishanu, this halacha that it says in the Mishnah, that when the shoyal is sending back the item to the owner, and he's not the owner didn't request it. The shoyal is sending it back on his own initiative. So on the way, if anything happens, he's still going to be responsible. When was this taught? Only Ella shechzir b'toichi meishei losa. If it was returned in the middle of the date, in the time when it's still the loan is still in effect. But if it was returned already after that time period, potter. Then you're going to be potter. The shoyal will be potter even if he is sending it, instead of the mashal, the owner did not request it, he's sending it, but because it's after the date that when the loan, the she'ela is up, so then whatever aynus happens after that date, he's not responsible. And Rashi adds what that means is, even if the item was still in the shoyal's house, and an aynus happens, it's not his responsibility. His responsibility for an aynus is only as long as that time period of the loan. After the time period of the loan, so then the owner has to make sure to get it back, because after that, the shoyal does not have responsibility for any aynus. Now on this, Mosav Rav Nachman Bar Papa, so Rav Nachman Bar Papa asks from the halacha that we just learned here from the Mishnah regarding the craftsman that has this item. So it said in the Mishnah, in all cases, if the craftsman says, come and take your item that I'm done with it. And v'have mois, and he adds, he makes it clear that you can take it right now, and you'll pay me whatever the money you owe me, you'll pay me at a later point. So then, shei mechinam. He's only going to be a shei mechinam. The original status that he has, it is a shei mesachar, will not apply. He's only a shei mechinam. So what do we see from this? That why are we saying here that he becomes a shei mechinam? Because he made it very clear that it's available. It's available for you to take. I don't want it anymore. I'm not holding it until you pay me. Come, get it. Not interested in guarding it anymore. So therefore, his original responsibility as a shemesachar, that is, as a hired, someone that's hired and is getting paid, does not apply. He made it clear he doesn't want it anymore. But from this we could learn out, if he did not make it clear that I'm done and I don't want it anymore, he just notifies the owner the job is done. So the job is done. So there's no reason for it to be anymore in his possession. This is equivalent to the case we had before when a person borrows something and the time period of the loan is over. Here as well, he's doing the job and he tells the owner the job is done. what would be the halacha? He didn't tell him clearly, I want you to come and take it, I'm not interested in having it anymore. He just tells him the job is over. Shomer Sachar, he still remains the same Shomer Sachar as he was in the beginning. So this is a question, because according to Rafram, the moment the days of the loan is over, the responsibility of the shoyel is gone, finished. He does not chai for einus anymore. Here we're saying that after the job is done, and he lets the owner know that the job is done, he's still responsible as a Shomer Sachar. And says the Gemara, loy, that's not the way you should be medayik from what it says here in the Mishnah. Rather over here, what you have to learn out from our Mishnah is, only if he said, come take your item and pay whenever you wish, then you're not holding it up and you're making it clear to him, come and take it. So he's a Shomer Chinam. When would he be a Shomer Sachar? If he tells him on a condition, if you first pay me, then you can come and take your item, then Shomer Sachar. Then he's still a Shomer Sachar because he's holding it back until he pays him. So he has it in his possession with this game to hold it until he's going to get paid. So he's going to be a Shomer Sachar. Avos. Okay, but now, however, after he finishes his job and he just lets the owner know that the job is done, even though the job is done, he still continues being a Shomer Sachar. Similar to what Rafram said, even after the days of the she'ela are over, you still are responsible. If you finish the job, the moment you finish the job, you're still going to be responsible. You're not going to be responsible, that is. If you finish the job, the moment you notify him that you finished the job, you're not going to be responsible as a Shomer Sachar. Only if you're telling him that I don't want you to take it until you pay me money, then you're still going to be responsible, like before, as a Shomer Sachar. But if you tell him you finished the job, you're not responsible anymore as a Shomer Sachar. Similar to what Rafram said, that if the days of the loan are over, then the responsibility for the einus does not apply anymore. But the Gemara asks him this, but if this is how we understand what we learn out from this Braisa, so now, Avol, Gemartiv Mai, if he simply lets him know that the job is done, so then what's the halacha? Shomer Chinam. So you're going to say that because the job is done, so his original responsibility of the Shomer Sachar does not apply, he's only going to be a Shomer Chinam at this point. But if that's the case, the Tani, why does it say here? Why does the Mishnah say that when do I say that his original responsibility as a Shomer Sachar does not apply anymore? That's only if he lets him know very clearly that I don't need your money, you can come and take it either way. Then he becomes a Shomer Chinam. Nashmeinon, let the Mishnah say the bigger chiddush, Gemartiv, that as long as he just tells him the job is done. So now he's telling him it's over, I don't need it anymore. Even if he doesn't make it clear to him, come and take it, I don't want to take any responsibility, then his original responsibility as a Shomer Sachar is over, like Rafram said. And for Kol Shekeh, I would definitely understand if he tells him Toila Shalcha. He clearly tells him, I want you to come take your item because I'm not taking responsibility anymore. For sure over there would be a Shomer Chinam. So why isn't the Mishnah saying the bigger chiddush? And it says the Gemara, no, when it says the case of Toila Shalcha, there's actually a bigger chiddush here. Why? Toila Shalcha Itzrichalei. The Tan of the Mishnah wanted to teach me the halacha that he's going to be a Shomer Chinam when he tells the owner, I'm done the job, and he adds, please come and take it, I'm not holding up this item, I don't want it in my possession anymore. The Mishnah has to teach me that in that case I would think to say, Shomer Chinam nami lo have. If he's making it so clear to him, I need you to pick this up, I'm not interested in holding on to it, I'm not waiting until you pay me, maybe he shouldn't be responsible on any level. Not even as an unpaid shomer. Kamash Malon, that's why it's come to teach me that even in this case, as long as it's in his house, in his possession, he will be chayiv as a Shomer Chinam. Now here the Gemara is going to bring another two versions of how this discussion regarding this subject went down. Ikadamri, there are others that said, Amar Rav Nachman bar Papa, after Rav Nachman bar Papa heard what Rafram said, that after the days of the she'ela, of the loan are over, you're not responsible anymore for the einus. So he said to that, Afanan Hamitanina, I'll actually bring you a proof of this from what we learned in our Mishnah, that when you have any craftsman that comes and says, take your item, because my job is done, and you bring me money at a later point. So what does the Mishnah say? Shomer Chinam, you don't have the original responsibility anymore as a Shomer Sachar, now you're only a Shomer Chinam. And how the way Rav Nachman understood this, my love, who adin gemartiv. We can probably say that when the Mishnah says that he told him, take it, and I don't need the money right now, even if he didn't say so explicitly, even if he just said the job is done, also his original responsibility is not there anymore. Right? Like the Gemara, like the Pshat the Gemara already said before, that it only said the case of Teila Shalcha V'Hava Mois to add the Chiddush that he's still a Shem Echinam, even though he's asking him to take it. But the halacha that his original responsibility of a Shem Sachar does not apply anymore is even just in a case where he lets him know that the job is done, like the Svara of Rafram. Once the job is done, you don't need it anymore, so you're not a Shem Sachar like you were. And on that they told him there's no raya from here. Loi toil eshelcha shani. You could say that the Mishnah was specific when it said that the craftsman tells the owner, take it, because then he's making it clear to him, I don't want it in my possession anymore. Only then is he not a Shem Yisachar like he was. But in the case of Rafram, when the days of the loan are over, not necessarily, if it's still in your possession, are you not going to be a shayel anymore that's responsible for an einus. Another way how this discussion went was Hune Mar Bar Mereimer Kamed Ravina. So Hune, son of Mereimer. So when he taught this halacha, Rami Masnisna Dodi. So he asked this as the contradiction between the two Mishnayos, our Mishnah here and the Mishnah from later in the Masechta. Umeshani. And then he actually used what Rafram said as an answer to the contradiction of these two Mishnayos. So how did he ask the contradiction? Tanan, in our Mishnah it says, that when any craftsman that says, come and take your item and then you pay me later, so now you're not a Shem Esach anymore. You're only a Shem Echinam. And then he understood that the pshat in our Mishnah is, even if you didn't tell him, come pick it up, you just tell him the job is done. So then, because the job is done, you're not anymore Shem Yisachar. And on this, Viramino, he asked a contradiction from the Mishnah where it says, oh, Malay Shoyel Shlach v'Sholcho Mesa Chayet. When a Shoyel tells the Mashil, the owner, send me this animal, and on the way, it died, so it's going to be the borrower's responsibility, because he's the one that asked him to send. So he takes responsibility from when it's being sent. Similar also, when it's being returned, it's going to be the responsibility of the shoyel, as long as it's the shoyel that's returning on his initiative. If the mashal requests, return it to me, then it's going to be the mashal's responsibility if the behemoth dies on the way. But if the shoyel sends on his own initiative, then it's the shoyel's responsibility. So what's the contradiction that he asked? He understood that Mishnah there is saying when a shoyel sends back the behemoth to the owner, even if it's after the days where the date of the loan is over, it's still the shoyel's responsibility for any einus that happens. So the contradiction is, by the craftsman, when the job is done, you don't have the same responsibility as before. So the same should be by the shoyel. When the date of the loan is over, you shouldn't have the same responsibility as before. Mishani, and then he answered this based on what Rafram said. Amar Rafram bar Papa, Amar Rav Chisda, Rafram bar Papa said in the name of Rav Chisda, that no, even there by the shoyel, lo yishanu ala shehichse b'toich yimei shelosa. When do we say that the borrower is responsible when he's returning it and on the way it died? That's only if he's returning it during the days of the loan. So then it's still within that time period he's responsible. After the time of the loan, if it died when he sent it back to the owner, he'll be pater. And that's why it's the same like it says by the craftsman. After the job is done, and now it gets stolen or it gets lost, he doesn't have the responsibility anymore like he had in the beginning, because his job is done already. On this, the Shaila was asked. So we're asking here a Shaila now on this halacha that Rafram said. Rafram said that once the days of the she'ela, of the loan, are over, the shoyel now is not responsible for an einus that happened like during the days of the loan. So now the question is, pater mishoyel, is he pater from the level of responsibility like a shoyel, which is chayiv even for an einus, but v'chayiv k'shem esachar? Will he still be at least responsible like the level of a Shem Yisachar, not only for negligence, but even if it gets stolen or lost? Or maybe he's not even a Shem Yisachar, and he's not responsible for a Geneva and Aveda that happens. He'll only be Chayiv as a Shem Yechinam. So Ameimer answers this Shaila, Mistavere Potem Mishayel. It's logical to say that after the days of the loan, so he's not Chayiv on the level of a Shoyel, which is responsible for an Einus, but Chayiv K'Shem Yisachar. He will still be responsible like a person that's being paid for this guarding that he's doing. What's the reason for this? Because he gained over here out of using this object. Because Hoyel Venene, since he had a no with this loan that he got it to use for himself, so now even after the days of the loan are over and he still has it in his possession, he's keeping it, he's guarding it until he gives it back to the owner. So in that time period, Mahana, he should also be responsible to give the benefit to the owner that he should guard it properly, like a Shem Misacha, because after all, he gained out of this. So therefore, now in return, he's guarding it for the owner. It's like a paid, like a Shem Misacha. You can say that Meimar, we learned in a Braise, like this Psaktin of Meimar. So Meimar, in the Braise that is, it says the following halacha. Halikeach kelim mibeisa uman. A person takes a vessel from a craftsman, and what does he want to do with it? He makes up a certain price that he's going to pay him for it, and then he tells him, look, what I'm doing with this is, l'shagron lebeis chamav, he's sending it to his in-laws where his kala is, and he's sending it as a gift to her. And the buyer tells the seller, if they'll accept this gift from me, they'll like it and accept it. So then, the money that we set, that I'm going to give, I'll give it to you. If they don't accept this gift, so then I'm going to return the item to you, but I'll pay you something for the benefit that I had of it. The fact that I showed that I'm ready to give this gift, so I had a certain benefit out of this, but then I'm returning it to you, and it's not mine. That was the deal here. What happens if something happened to this vessel, or einus happened and it broke? So if it was on the way that was being delivered to his in-laws, chayiv, then the buyer is going to be responsible for this, because at that point it's like his. He bought it, he set a price already, and he said he would pay for it. So at this time period, it's still his, and he's responsible for the einus that happened there. However, if the in-laws did not want it, or the kala did not want it, and it's already being returned, so now at that point, if an einus happens to it potter, he's going to be potter from any einus. Why? Because at that point, he's not interested in buying it anymore. He made it clear, if they don't want it, then it's not mine. So it's already being returned. It's on the way being returned, so it's not his. He's not going to be responsible for an einus. And the Braise concludes, at this point, he's not going to be chayiv on the level of a person that took it and he borrowed it and he's having a nor from it and he has to pay for any einus, but he's going to be responsible only as a shemer sachar. So we see clearly over here that even though he's not responsible anymore for an einus, but the very fact that he took it and he got a benefit from it that he sent it to his in-laws for the kala to see, so therefore even now when he's guarding it and it's being sent back, he's not responsible anymore for an einus, but he's still responsible as a shemer sachar. Like what Ameimer said, after the time, a shayl that is still chayav like a shemer sachar. So the Gemara, there was a story with a person, he sold a donkey to his friend. That's according to most Rishonim, the chamre is a donkey. Others say it means he sold wine to his friend. And Amalei, his friend tells him, the buyer says, look, what I'm doing is, I'm going to bring this donkey to this and this location to sell it. If it's going to be bought, mutiv, so then good. So then the price that we set, I'll pay you. If they're not going to buy it, I'm going to return to you the donkey. Mamish, the same seemingly, like the story before with the vessel that a person took to send to his in-laws. Now Ozal, he went to that place, he couldn't find anyone, it wasn't sold. Now Bahadi the Kaasya, on his way returning, after it's clear, seemingly, that he's not going to be buying it, so he's on his way to return it to the one that he bought the donkey from him. Itness, an einus happened and it died. So now who's responsible for the einus at this point? Also, it made it Rav Nachman, so they came to Rav Nachman and Chayve. Rav Nachman said that the buyer is responsible for the einus that happened on the way returning it. So the Gemara's question is, Rav Nachman, or Rav asked Rav Nachman, why is he responsible? We just learned before regarding the kalim that you sent to the in-laws that Nansu Bahaliche Chayev. If a einus happens to it on the way when it was being sent to the in-laws, so then it's still yours, you're still potentially buying it, and you set a price for it already, so you're responsible for the einus. But if it's being returned already, then you're potter. At this point, you're not chayiv for an einus. You're only like a chayiv, like a shemer sachar. So you're not responsible. So why don't we say the same thing here on the way that taking the donkey back? So it's clear, seemingly, that you're not going to be buying it. So you shouldn't be responsible as a shayl. So he answered. Rav Nachman answered him. Over here, it's different. Over here, this person that's returning with his donkey after he couldn't find any buyer in that location where he went to, halichihi. He still has the same status like when he's on his way to go to sell it there. My time. What's the reason? Svarahu, that we know it's logical to say b'chazirasai, even on his way back, ilu ashkach l'zvune. If he encounters a customer on the way back that's going to be ready to buy the donkey, milay zavna, would he not sell it? It's different than the case of the in-laws. Once the in-laws send it back, that's it. There's nobody else he's going to be giving it to. It's going back to the person he bought it from. Here, though, he's still hoping, maybe I'll find a potential buyer along the way. So therefore, it's still in his possession. It's still his responsibility, even for an einus that happens. The next thing it said in the Mishnah was, a person tells his friend, Shmoyli, guard me for me this item, the Eshmar Lacha, and in return, I will guard for you another item. So then, Shem Esachar. He has a Shem Esachar, even though he's not being paid, but there's an exchange here. He's gaining. I'm guarding this only because I'm gaining by this, that you're going to guard something else for me. So he's responsible like a Shem Esachar. But the Gemara asks Sunday, it's Vamai. Why is he responsible at all? Shmira bebailim he. This is a case where a person is guarding while the owner of this object that you're guarding is also working for you. And the halach is, as learned from the pasuk where it says, Im ba'olav imoy lo yishalim, that if you're guarding an object for someone, and the owner of that object is working for you at that same time when you took it into your possession to guard for him, then you're not responsible to pay. And this applies, the pasuk is said by a shayil, but the same applies also by a shem esachar and a shem echinam. So over here, if he's guarding the object for him, while the other person is working for you to guard something for you, so he's working for you when you're taking it to guard for him. So you should be pater altogether. Amar Rav Papa, so Rav Papa answers, the Amalei, what the Mishnah meant to say over here is, the case is that he tells his friend, Shmarli Ayayim, you'll guard for me this object today, and in return, and I'll guard something else for you tomorrow. You're only exempt when the owner of the object that you're guarding is working for you, if he's working for you at the time that you take it into your possession when you begin to guard it. But if then he's not working for you, only later on he's going to work for you, then you're not going to be poter. And a Braisa we learned, it says like this, that you will guard for me this, and I will guard something else for you, or Hashileni, you lend me an item, Va'ashilcha, and I'll lend you something else in return. Shmarli, Va'ashilcha, guard something for me, and I'll lend something for you. Hashileni, you lend something to me, Va'eshmer Lacha, and I'll guard something for you. Kulan, in all these cases, Nasu, Shemrei Sachar, Zelazeh. So they're both going to be like a Shem Esacha, one for another. In other words, even though that he's not being paid, he's not a Shem Echinam, because he is getting something in return. And also, even if he's borrowing, he's not going to be a Shayil, because he's sort of paying for it, because he's doing his friend a favor in return. So therefore, they all have the status of a Shem Esacha. But the question though is, like we asked before, why should you be chayiv altogether? Shmira bebailim he. If while you're guarding the object of your friend, he is working for you and guarding something for you, he's working for you. So it's shmira, while the bailim are working for you, you're not responsible. Rav Papa, so Rav Papa again answered the same thing. The case in this Braisa is as well, that he told him, Shmarli hayoim, you will guard for me today, ve'eshmer l'cha l'macha, and I'll guard for you in exchange tomorrow. Gemara brings a few stories in connection to this halacha. Anu Hanu Ahaluye. There were these people that were working together and they're selling. Rashi has two pshat, and one pshat is they're selling soap or herbs that you make soap out of it, or they're selling perfume. Now this group of people, the chol yom every day, have a afiluhu chad minayu. One of them would provide the food. He would bake the bread for all of them. They would have a rotation. There was one day, so they said to one of them, amongst them, Zila Afilon, go and bake for us. And Rashi says at this point, the Gemara understands that it was his turn. It was his day to go and bake for them on that day. So he tells them, while I'm going to bake, notruli glimoy, watch for me my garment. Okay, now, so in this case, when they're watching his garment, they're only a shay mechinam. Why? Because they're not getting anything in exchange. The fact that he's baking for them on that day is not considered that they're getting a gain in exchange, because that was anyways his day of the rotation that they have to do between each other. So they are guarding his garment as a shay mechinam. What happened? Adasa, until they came, pashuba. They were negligent with this garment, they didn't guard it properly, v'agnav, and they got stolen. So now the question is, are they responsible for this that it got stolen because of their negligence? Also, l'kamei, the Rav Papa, they came and asked Rav Papa about this. Chayvinu. And Rav Papa said they're responsible to pay for this negligence. Rav Papa, so the Rabbana say to Rav Papa, why are they responsible? Amai, pshiyeh be'bailim he. Since while they're watching his garment, he's going and baking for them. So he's working for them. While they're washing his garment, he's doing work for them, baking for them. And this is a case of pshia, that they were negligent in an object that they're guarding for this person that's not also working for them and baking. So it should be poter. So ichsef. Rav Papa got embarrassed with the psak din that he paskined. But L'Saif, in the end, it turned out that Rav Papa's psak din was right. Because Igloi Milse, what it turned out was, now who shaita? At that time, when they took the garment to guard for him, he didn't immediately go and begin working for them and baking for them. Sheikh Rav Kashasi, he was just sitting and drinking beer. He only began baking for them at a later time. So the petor of Shmirah B'Bailim is only if when you begin. When the Shemi begins, the Shmirah, the owner is then your worker. As over here, though, he wasn't working. He didn't begin baking bread at that point. He began later on. So therefore, he's going to be chayiv. Shemi here is going to be chayiv. Now the Gemara addresses another detail that we see here in the story, that the Gemara said that the concept, the petur of Shmirah B'Bailim, applies even to a Shemi Chinam. So the Gemara asks this, so this is understood according to the opinion that says that even negligence, which a shemichinam is responsible for, if the owner is working for you, you're still going to be potter. So that's why Rav Papa got embarrassed when he realized that the owner is working and therefore he should be potter. But there's another opinion that says the whole petur of Shmirah B'Bailim applies by a shoyel or by a shemisachar, which is oynes or gneva and aveda, but not for negligence. Negligence is always going to be your responsibility. Amai ichsev, so why did he get embarrassed? He should anyways be chayev. So the Gemara, therefore, according to this opinion, changes the version of the story that happened. Ela, rather, hahu yoyim elavdi dehave. That day, when this group of people, they asked him, that you baked the bread for us today, it wasn't his turn. It wasn't his turn to bake the bread that day. They told him, they told this person, Zil afilonat, even though it's not your turn today, bake for us today. And he said to them, that in exchange for this, that I'm going to be baking for you today, even though it's not my turn, guard for me my garment. Guard for me my garment. Okay, so now what does it come out of here? That if this is what happened, it wasn't his turn that day, so then he's actually a shemisachar. Because the only reason he's baking today out of his turn is in exchange for the favor that they're going to watch his garment for him. So if he's a shemisachar, so then what happened here in the story is not that there was a negligence here, but rather what happened was, Ada until these shemrim, they were supposed to guard it, until they came, igniv, it got stolen. It was no pshia, but it got stolen. And then also they came to Rav Papa, and chayvinu, we obligated them to pay. And this is the shemisachar that he obligated to pay, even though the owner of this object is doing work for them. So I'm related to Rav Papa, as we learned before, that Rabbanan asked Rav Papa, but Shmirah B'Bailim, but they're guarding this garment while he's baking for them. So if so, he should be potter. And in that, as the story went, Ichsif, Rav Papa got embarrassed of Psaktin. Then l'chseif gloi milse. In the end, it turned out that he shaite shikra v'shasi. At the time when he gave his garment, he was drinking beer. He didn't begin right away baking for them. So therefore, the petor of Shmirah B'Bailim does not apply, as we learned before. Another story, the Gemara says, Hanu beitrei dahavu kamaz geborche. There were two that were traveling on the way together. Chad arich, one is tall, and v'chad gutze, and one was short. And ariche rochev chamra, the tall individual, was riding on a donkey. And v'havale sadina, and he was covered with a thin linen garment. Gutze, the short individual, michsi sarvale, he was covered with a heavier wool coat. And v'kamazge b'kareh, he's walking on foot. So what happened? Kimotul and nare, when they came into a river and they had to pass through the river. So now this person that's short with his coat, the heavy coat, and the coat is going to go into the water and it's going to weigh him down. It's going to get all wet. So what did he do? Shakle l'sarvale. He took his heavy coat, and he put it on the donkey, and instead to cover himself, and he took the thinner sheet, or the thinner linen sheet, and then covered him, the dahu of this individual that was on the donkey, and he covered himself. So there was an exchange. I'm using your sheet to cover myself, while you're going to keep and guard my heavier coat on your donkey. And what happened in the end? Shatfu amayla sadine. In the end, the water came and dragged away the sheet, and it got lost and drowned in the water. So the question is whether this person is responsible for this. So also they came and asked Rava about this, and Chayve, Rava was mechayev, the one that the short person had the sheet on him. He was mechayev him to pay for what happened. So the Rabbanan asked Rava about this. Why is he responsible? He's borrowing while the person that he borrowed this item from him is working for you. Why? Because while you borrowed it from him, he's working for you. He's carrying on his donkey your heavier coat for you. So he's doing work for you while you're borrowing. You should be poter. So what happened? Rava got embarrassed of his psaktin. But again, in the end, it turned out that Rava was right. L'saif, igloi, milse. In the end, what came out was the beloi daite shakle or beloi daite iser. This wasn't some kind of an agreement where he borrowed it from him. He did it without even asking him. He just went and threw his coat on top of the donkey and went and grabbed his sheet as an exchange to cover himself. So this is not a person that's borrowing. This is a gzela. Sheila shalei b'das bailim is a gzela. So therefore, he's going to be responsible for the aynus that happened. Another story, there's a person that rented a donkey to his friend. And the owner tells the renter, Chazi, be careful, look and be sure that the agreement of this rental is you're not allowed to go to the area where there's nar pakoid, where there's a river, the kamaya, there's water there, and the donkey could drown. Zil ba'orcha de narish. Instead, you can take it, you can use it in the pathway of narish. The lekamaya, there's no water. What happened? The renter Ozil, he went borcha de nar pakoid. He went in that area of nar pakoid, umis chamra, and the donkey died there. Kiyasa, when he came back, and they asked him what happened. So Omar, he said, in borcha de nar pakoid Ozli, yeah, it's true. I went to that area where I wasn't supposed to go, but umiyo lekemaya. However, there was no water there, and the donkey, when it died, it didn't die because of the water. It was just a mesa machmas malacha. It just died, not because of the water. So he's saying, I'm still potter, because he told me not to go there because of the water, but there was no water there. So Rava says he has a very good claim. Why? Because here you should be believed. We don't know where he went. We don't have any Eidim that know where he actually took this donkey to. He could have came and said, well, I took it to exactly where you told me to take it. And the behemoth just died. It's not my responsibility. So this is a migu. Male l'shaker. Why should he have lied and said that I took it to the place where you told me not to take it, to Nar Pekoid, and then say, but there was no water there? If he wanted, he could have simply said, I went to the place of Nadish where you told me to take it, and over there's no water, and I'm not responsible. So this proves that he's saying the truth. If he would be a liar, he would simply just say that he went to the place where it's safe. So with a migu, with this proof that he's saying the truth, he should be believed. But Abaye answers, no, in such a case, he's not believed. Why? Mali l'shaker. This to prove that he's trustworthy with this migu, that he could have lied differently. If it's going against the words of Edom, we don't say this. What does it mean it's going against the Edom? There are no actual Edom here. So Rashi explains that place of Nahar Pekoid, we know for a fact that there's almost always water there. It's like we have Edom that tell us that there's water there. And this guy is coming and claiming, I went there, it's true, but there was no water there. The claim that he's saying is like a claim against Edom, because we know for a fact that there is water there. So then even if he has a migu to prove that he's saying the truth, because we see if he would have been a liar, it could have been so easy for him to lie, but nevertheless, it's not going to tell us we should trust his claim if we know for a fact that in that place there is water, and therefore is responsible for the damage of the animal. The next case of the Mishnah, it said, Shmoy li, a person says to someone, guard for me this object, and the person answers, Hanach lefana, you could put it down in front of me. What does that expression mean? Shay mechinam. He's taking the responsibility as a shay mechinam on this object. Amar Ravuna says on the Mishnah, Amar loy, if the person responds and says, Hanach lefanecha, put it down in front of yourself, in front of you. So then, what is he telling him? He's not going to be a shame on any level, not a shay mechinam, not a shay misachar. He's basically telling him, I'm not going to guard your object, keep it for yourself. So the shaila now was asked, how about if you just said one word, Hanach, put it down, stomach, without adding that it's put it down in front of me or put it down in front of yourself, stomach. So what does this expression of Hanach mean? So the Gemara says, Toshima, let's learn this out from what the Mishnah said. The Mishnah said, Shmor li, a person says to his friend, guard this for me, va'omar loy, and he answers, Hanach lefanai. So the Mishnah clearly spells out, he says, put it in front of me. Then he becomes a shem mechinam. What do we understand from this? Ha stome v'loy klum. But if he just responds, Hanach, put it down, and he doesn't add, put it down in front of me, so then it seems like then he won't take any responsibility. So we see over here that Hanach is nothing. But the Gemara says, Adarabe, on the contrary, we see that Rav Hune did not hold of this diak of our Mishnah. Midom, Rav Hune, from this, that Rav Hune said, Hanach lefonecha, that only if you clearly say to the one that wants you to guard it, put it down in front of yourself, who the ein Eloi Shem Mechinah v'Eloi Mishem Misachar, then I say that you're not a Shem Mechinah or a Shem Misachar, ha stame. So what we could learn out from this is that if you just said one word Hanach, Shem Mechinam Ave, that then you will be a Shem Mechinam. If you said put it down, you're accepting responsibility as a Shem Mechinam. So therefore the Gemara says, Ela meha leke lemishma mina. You can't prove anything from our Mishnah. Apparently Rav Huna held that the halacha of our Mishnah, even though the Mishnah says Hanach lefanai, it's not in order to learn out from it that Hanach Stam, you would be a Shem Mechinam. It's the Mishnah saying the halacha when he said Hanach lefanai, but you can't be medayik. Rav Huna held that there's no diak here from this Mishnah. Okay, but now the Gemara says, Leime ketanai, shall we say that the Shiloh we asked, when he says just one word, Hanach, put it down, does he mean to accept responsibility for it as a Shem Mechinam or not? So this seems to be a machlekes of the Tanaim in the following Mishnah. The Mishnah there, this is in Bava Metzia, speaks about a case where you have somebody that brings into his friend's courtyard pots, or he brings in his animals into his friend's courtyard, or he brings fruits into his friend's courtyard, and now your friend's ox goes and smashes it and breaks it. So who's going to be responsible for the damage that happened? So the Mishnah said, Im hichnes birishos, if you brought in your items into your friend's courtyard with permission, then bal chatzah. So then the owner of the courtyard, his animal, his ox that went and damaged it, will be responsible. Now what does hichnes birishos mean? Hichnes birishos simply means he tells him, come in. He just gave him permission to enter. He didn't clearly spell out, and I'll take care of it. He just says, he gives him permission to enter. So what we see over here is that the Tanakama holds, the very fact that he just says, come in, is enough for us to assume that you're saying, I'll take responsibility for any damage. So now, if his ox goes and damages, I'll be responsible for this. So the Gemara understands that the same should apply over here, that if someone asks you, would you guard this for me? And he just says one word, put it down. Yeah, he's taking responsibility to be a shaymer for this. However, Rabbi says, Bekulam, in all these cases that it mentions there, whether the potter, whether the fruits, or whether you bring your animals into someone's property, Ein Chayiv, the owner of the courtyard is not going to be responsible just by one word telling him to enter. He has to clearly say, I'm taking responsibility to guard it for you, and otherwise you won't be responsible. So over here, we could say, according to Rabbi, the same thing. If you just say one word, Hanach, you're not going to be responsible. That's only if you clearly say, Hanach lefonai, that you're going to be responsible. That's so we see here it's a machlekes Tanaim. But the Gemara here will explain that we can't compare. Both in the Rabbanan's opinion and the Rabbi's opinion, it's not necessarily the same. Mimai, how do you know to compare these two cases? The basic difference in the facts of the cases here is, one, you're talking about permission to enter in someone's private courtyard. The other one, you're talking about a case where you meet your friend in the street and you're giving him an item, or you're asking, would you be a shamer on this item? So therefore the Gemara says the distinction is as follows. Dilme, maybe I can tell you, over there, when it comes to a chotzer, the Rabbanan say as soon as you give permission to enter. So then, the owner of the courtyard is taking responsibility. The bas neturihi, because a courtyard is a private place, and it's easy to guard it. It's an enclosed area. So therefore, when he tells him enter, he means to say to him, here, enter, put it down here, leave your stuff here, and I'll guard it, because it's easy to guard it here. So he's just saying enter, we assume that he takes responsibility to do the job, to guard it. But over here, we're talking about a person that approaches his friend in the street. Shuke, in the street, in the marketplace, lav barnaturihu. It's not an area which is a fenced in, a guarded area. It's not so easy to guard it. So therefore, if he just tells him, put it down, what did he mean to say to him? Anach v'siv nitarloch kalmale. What he's telling him is here in the marketplace, you want me to guard it for you? Put it down and you sit and guard it yourself. I'm not taking care of it over here. So it's not the same thing. Hinami, or the Gemara says, we can say according to Rabbi's opinion, that what Rabbi says there does not apply here. When Rabbi over there says that when you bring something into his courtyard, he's not taking responsibility, unless he explicitly says that he's taking responsibility. That's only Ella b'chatzeiroi, that's only in his courtyard. You want to come into a private person's courtyard, just for the entry, you need to get permission. So therefore, so when you're saying, yeah, you could enter, since you need permission just for the very entry, so when he says, yes, come in, what does he mean to say? He's giving permission just for that, to enter. And what he's telling him is, you can come in, but you can come in, but you're going to have to guard your own items that you're bringing here. But over here, when they're out in the marketplace, and he tells him, Hanach, he tells him, put it down. What did he mean to say? He meant, put it down, he's telling his friend, I'm going to guard it for you. That's what he meant to say to him. Why? Because according to Rebbe, we could say, if you think he meant to tell his friend, put it down, and he means to tell him, put it down and you guard it, to put it down and that he should guard it, he needs permission from you. If you don't want to guard it, just ignore him. If you're telling him Hanach here in the street, he doesn't need permission from you to guard it himself. When you're telling him here in the street, put it down, over here, the only meaning of your words are, put it down, or one word that is, when you say put it down is, then I'm going to guard it for you. So here even Rabbi would agree that the one word means that he is accepting responsibility to guard it for him.